All right, hello everybody. So this is kind of new, little bit new. Should be an easy episode. We are obviously doing a podcast, but this is going to be mostly introduction stuff because this is sort of new to the channel. I haven't done one of these in a while. The game obviously isn't out. This is a new podcast, quote unquote. So we have to spend a good chunk of this episode talking about exactly what it is we're doing. Although, of course, we'll talk lots of Tekken as well. So before we get into the meat of stuff, first, who are we? So this is you're going to hear an extra voice that you normally don't hear if you watch videos on the channel. I'm, of course, Zhang, although many people pronounce it Zhang, myself included. Just some background. It's a name from a character from a book once upon a time that I picked as my handle, and it just kind of stuck. But that's who I am. And then I have my co-host once again with me. Goes by many names, although, well, I'll let you introduce yourself. What name would you like them to know you by?
You can call me whatever. I'm just old washed up JK.
All right. Well, Mr. Whatever. This is if you were
Washed up
around,
JK.
yes, we are both very old. So if you were around for the time of Tekken Zaibatsu, which technically still exists, like it didn't there for a bit, and then somebody bought it, I guess, and then put it back up. But I think it's, kind of dead still now. But back when it was popping and it was the epicenter for everything Tekken, at least in the U.S., this man was Mr. Jana Kazama. And then there's been some name fluctuations throughout. I think if do you still use Prinny Juice on your Steam or whatever? I can't remember if it's
Yeah,
different now.
Printing
It
Juice is
is, yeah.
probably my most recent, and
Yeah.
if somebody's just looking at me on our Minnesota Discord or something, that's me.
Yeah. So in case you think that we aren't good, I don't have anything really super flashy to talk about. I've had some runs here or there, but this guy back in the T5 days made it hit to Nationals when Nationals was a thing. And no, I don't mean Evo. I mean like a Nationals that Namco ran, which, they don't, I guess they do. I mean, they call it the Tekken World Tour now, but they had an actual nationals tournament for the U.S. and I don't remember what other regions had, but I presume that they had similar things. This guy is a masterclass, and these days he is the deep diver. All of the information, all the cool stuff, the really unique and esoteric things that you might find in videos or whatever, largely coming from this guy. So huge
These
things
days
to
they
him.
call you a tryhard.
They call you a tryhard. Or no, I think
Yeah.
what's the term? Lab monster, right? Isn't
Oh,
that what it is?
sweat.
So I guess what I can do though, as to kind of let everybody know what's going on, is that this isn't the first time that we've done a podcast. So we did a podcast back when Tekken 6 was out, which is weird that Tekken 6 was like 15 years ago. That seems crazy because we're still on Tekken 7, like one iteration of game, and somehow 15 years has passed.
That's a huge credit to the strength of that game, and exciting to go into the next one coming off of something like that, though.
Yes, I agree, because it felt like Tekken 6 was really good, but for whatever reason, I don't know if maybe just the balancing aspect of it was kind of dulled it out a little bit. And then Tag 2, people were excited for Tag 2 when it first came out, but we had a pretty good run, I think, for Tekken 6, because we did a podcast, which for those curious is the episodes are up on the YouTube channel. I keep them uploaded just for archival purposes, but that was actually pre YouTube, like people using YouTube for podcasts. It was pre Spotify, pre all that crap. We had to, I don't even remember what the site was called, but we used a website where we put up the audio.
The BGF?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't. I think I did, because I guess what he's referring to is a website I used to have where I kind of put a bunch of Tekken stuff and what have you. But I think I did put links there, but I didn't have like server space myself or anything. So we used, God, I really wish I could remember what the site was, but you would just upload the audio file and then you could, link it, wherever. But, we used that for like to hold the episodes. And then I was fortunate enough that I knew a lot of, the moderators, the big moderators at Tekken Zaibatsu, and I would just make a news post, and put it up there. And I feel like, a lot of people listen to it, relatively speaking, relative to the size of the community that we were. And I think that went well. And then we started doing one for Tag 2, but Tag 2 died so quickly. I think I still have those episodes up on the YouTube channel as well, but there aren't as many because we never got through all of the characters, because the idea or the structure of both the Tag 2 podcast as well as the Tekken 6 one was that, you and I or whoever would pick a character, we'd have character episodes, and then we would normally get a guest on to chat about that episode. So like we've had Anakin. I think Anakin is probably the only person who still plays that we had.
Oh, no, you had Ice Age.
Ice Age, he's around, but he doesn't really like play right anymore. Like he's just kind of like us doing the family stuff. So
You had Shinblade, I think.
Shinblade, yeah, I think we did have Shinblade at one point. So for those who don't know, well, no, I guess, yeah, if he's still around, then people would know. I'm trying to think of anybody else. Oh, Mr. Taxi. I think we had Mr. Taxi, although he doesn't play anymore. But he did when Tekken 7 first started. So if you remember when Tekken 7 first kicked off, Mr. Taxi was floating around there. But yeah, so it was fun. We just took a character, we dissected a character, we brought a guest on to help us talk about the character. So that was a lot of fun. But I guess the expectation for this podcast, this is purely us. This is the idea is to be, Tekken 8 centric, but it's, it's going to be far more casual than, the stuff that you see on the YouTube channel. Like the guides are very structured. I write out scripts for those ahead of time. That kind of thing. These are not going to be that. This is just that kind of where we can dump all of those little topics that don't really need. Talk. Yeah, coffee. Yes, perfect. That's a perfect way to describe it. Coffee talk. So things that just wouldn't really make sense to throw into a guide or create a guide around. And with Tekken 8 coming out, we'll have, I'm sure that lots of new information will just be non-stop coming out, and it's easier to talk about it in this kind of setting than to try to make guides or even do a solo thing myself and make a video going over stuff. I feel like a podcast is a much better thing for that. So the expectation to just kind of let everybody know, like I said, it's real casual, so there's no concrete schedule. I think once a month is probably reasonable to expect an episode, but there's always stuff that could pop up, holidays, whatever, but there's no date or anything for each month that I expect to have an episode. It's just going to kind of be whenever we have built up enough that we feel we can knock another one out. General, I guess, outline for any of these episodes is that we'll start with introduction, maybe some news items, things like that. If we want to, maybe we'll kind of do some retro stuff like we did with the old podcasts and talk about a character, maybe some matches or matchups, match analysis. If any big tournaments or anything came out, maybe I'm sure we'll especially when Tekken 8 first comes out, we'll talk about broad relevant topics like punishing and we have a completely new mechanic now with the heat system, so that'll get a lot of talk, I'm sure, to keep all your jimmies ruffled. We'll talk some tiers, I'm sure. Any cool tech that maybe pops around, and then we're old men, so you can expect some tangents. We'll do some historical stuff if we need to. If we can, I will try to get guests on, but the situation is a lot different from when we did this before. Like the community was so better centered in one spot with Tekken Zaibatsu. Like everybody was there. That's where everyone went. Now you have not just Twitter, but you have all the, Discord is split into all these different Discords. Not to mention the best players, what's the best way to put it? I don't want to say ego, but like it's a lot more Hollywood. It's a lot harder to get in touch with people, specific people that, everyone would know and whatever. And this just isn't really that kind of podcast anyway. So, and then we'll probably,
This is for fans, not really people who need to get an agent in order to talk.
Right, exactly. And most of those people anyway have their own channels these days. Everybody has their own content that they push, so it's just not really necessary to do that. But if it seems relevant or appropriate, maybe we'll do something like that. And then at the end, if you guys have questions or feedback or whatever, we can always wrap up with kind of a Q&A session or anything random things that pop up for us that we want to talk about. So that's just kind of a basic overview of what you can expect from these podcasts. If you are for Tekken content in general, we really want to make it for that purpose. So you can expect lots and lots of Tekken 8 talk. Obviously the game isn't out yet, but we have a lot of stuff from the CBT and what have you that we can chat about. But especially when the game drops, there's just going to be so much new information and trying to help guide, a lot of those newer players that come to the channel that watch the guides to try to get better and stuff. We'll have a lot for you. And then I guess real quick before we actually move on and jump into some Tekken 8, some changes that you guys might have noticed or seen. The Patreon did change. I finally got around to updating all the Patreon tier levels and stuff. And this podcast is going to be a part of one of those tier levels. So I plan on putting these up on YouTube every episode we do, but if you are a Patreon member, you'll get it a little bit earlier than when we put it up on YouTube. So, that support helps a lot, helps us kind of not just validate, but help us justify doing all the work that we do for the channel. So, please, by all means, give that some consideration. But even just...
Maybe we should put out new episodes like a day before a tournament or something.
The day before a tournament?
And they're like, I'm looking for that new hot tech.
What's the new tier list?
and then they go to the tournament. So-and-so is a subscriber. They got to hear it just in time.
That'd be funny. Oh, snap, he's top 3. And he's subbed there. What do you know? Everybody else got a sub. That'd be sick. And I guess on that, you guys don't have to go through Patreon if you don't want to. For anyone who uses YouTube in this way, super chats and stuff like that are turned on. The only thing I don't have turned on are memberships. So for anyone who doesn't know, you can kind of subscribe to channels in the same way that you might subscribe to a Twitch channel or whatever. It's just an ongoing sub. But YouTube takes a pretty good chunk of that, whereas Patreon takes a lot smaller of a chunk. So most content creators, I think, kind of push the Patreon for that reason. But any other feedback you guys have on that? I really want to make the Patreon worth it for all you guys, because, up until this point, I feel like the patrons that we have more or less been doing it as a thank you to us for putting the stuff, which is awesome. Obviously, that's a kindness that is hard to put into words, but at the same time, I've really wanted to have something there for them to say, oh, hey, I'm also getting a little bit more back, for my donation. So, we'll slowly, I'm sure, be tweaking that as time goes on, but this podcast is going to be a part of that. So like Dan just said, you get it a little early. if you're part of the tier. I think it's the $10 tier that has that. So please consider that. Okay, so enough of that. So that's all the intro stuff. That's what this podcast is going to be about and everything. So now we can kind of get into the meat. I don't think there's really any current. Oh yes, and I guess happy holidays. Not everyone who visits the channel is from the U.S., but for those of you that are, or if you have just happened to know, the U.S. had a holiday. Here we are in the Thanksgiving weekend now, so I hope everybody had a good holiday. Check out those Steam sales. I'm sure, I haven't looked it up, but I'm sure Tekken 8 is having some pre-order sales. I can talk about this at the end of the episode, but the Thanksgiving winter sales, they got me a little bit. So they hit my wallet, but definitely check those out. And then otherwise, events. So I know we'll get to this here in just a second. I'll actually throw this over to you because I'm sure you'll want to rant about this a little bit. But as far as I know, the only thing we have upcoming for sure is the game's release. They haven't announced any other events, I don't think. I have been expecting
still a world tour final or something.
Yeah, for Tekken 7, but at least for Tekken 8, I would have expected that we would get one more beta, like an open beta, but they have not, I don't think, even hinted at that yet. The only thing that we've gotten are the trailers, right? That's the only thing that they've said is coming. So
at
there
this
hasn't
point,
been
they
a
have
lot.
to be thinking anytime they release it, it's gonna affect their sales. So,
Release what? What do you mean?
like if they were to release an open beta or more characters, I mean, because there has been piracy type things going on, they're probably thinking it's affecting their sales if they do any more now.
Interesting.
That's my perspective on what they're probably thinking, like no open beta or something.
I'm curious. Why do you think that? Why do you think it would affect sales?
Well, I think that people would, because frankly, the economy is getting better, but it's not getting better very quickly. So maybe if they release like an open beta, or maybe with more of the characters, people like there's that day one excitement. Like, so now we have half of the cast that we're about to see these trailers for that nobody knows anything about. They're probably thinking, let's leave half the characters out. Let's not, go too much further into all of the different side options that we have, or develop it any further, because there's going to be that day one you open the game and this is the official game, and you want all of the excitement still there for them, because that excitement translates to word of mouth, which gets more people, all of that.
For sure. I don't think if they were to do another beta, I mean, they definitely would not have the whole cast. If anything, they might add a character or two at most. Maybe they just keep it the exact same as the CBT. But my main thinking behind an open beta, I don't have as big of concern about like sales numbers. I was mostly though looking at precedent from other fighters that have come out in the last couple years. That's normally what they've been doing, is either a closed beta or two, and then they have an open beta roughly a month-ish before the release, mostly as like a stress test, just to see how it holds up. But it's always possible that Namco got all the data that they needed in the CBT and that they are done. It just seems that, I guess, odd to do a beta, to have closed betas without an open beta. Because normally they are, they're paired together in some way. So, because up until this point, all the closed betas, if you didn't get in, you had to go buy a key for a beta, which is whack. But it is what it is, I guess. But I guess to go back to your point, or the item that you brought up, we do have the Tekken World Tour. It is coming up. I feel like there is an event of some sort happening. There has to be, right? For I'll actually look it up now. Tekken World Tour events, because I can't imagine that they're done with any majors. But the only one I can think of off the top of my head is Frosty Faustings, but that's not happening until like pretty much release weekend. So that's
Yeah.
not a Tekken World Tour thing. Well, what's left here?
I was wondering whether or not they'd maybe give us like a few months before they started it up and like, here's our new cycle or something. But it also doesn't make sense because having those, tournaments right off the bat, it's kind of fun to see like new people, busting out new tech.
Right. So looking at the schedule here, yeah, they might actually be done. The LCQ is the 12th, and then actual finals are the 13th and the 14th of January. Ooh, excuse me. But I think they're done. The last major that they have on this list was Tiger Uppercut, and that happened a couple of weeks ago or whatever. That was the last master event, and then challenger events. I can't read this one, but there was something in October. I can't read the writing on that picture. It's too small. But yeah, it looks like end of October was the last challenger event, so they might actually be done, which is interesting. I would think with a couple months to go that there would be at least one or two more events, but I guess not. So yeah.
Maybe people didn't sign up to create events because they're just like, no, get it done.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, interesting. So I guess we're done with the big tournaments. So there's just really not a whole lot to talk about in that arena, because we're just sitting around waiting for the finals at this point. So yeah, no real current events. And if we do one of these episodes next month in December, there's probably not going to be much going on in that arena too, so current events will be pretty light there. So the only other current event in quotes to talk about is are the trailers, right? So thoughts? All we've gotten, I guess, so far is Leo. They just came out, right, with that.
Yeah, and you know what? Leo is a fine character. I'm upset just because it's not Yoshi and everything, but that I really think looking at that, Leo looks like another top tier character. It's strong. I'm impressed with their changes.
Now, on that topic, because you mentioned Yoshi, who is that? Now you're for sure Yoshi, right? Because I know that you have been enjoying the Azucena a little bit. Is there anything that could sway you away from playing Yoshi as the guy?
It's gonna come down to what they do with Yoshi. So I'm definitely, he gets a fair shake, and I'm by no means locked into anybody. It's just Yoshi's been this giant impossible quest, and I love the impossible quests. He's got. I know that they're going to tone down his number of moves because they've toned down everybody's moves. People who had 300 moves now cut in half. So if they remove too many of his options, I mean, this is a character that's built around having so many options. You can kind of overload your opponent and even overload yourself. But then they could end up ruining some of his unique things, like if Flash is not a launcher anymore, it's a heat engager. I mean, that changes things quite a bit. But that's not to say that they couldn't do it right. So it's gonna come down to testing him out and then weighing him against how fun some of these other characters are. Everybody has changed quite a bit. I mean, Azucena is incredibly fun. Probably one of the most fun characters I've played with in a long time. Probably since Dragunov. But
Brand new Dragunov, right?
See.
DR Dragunov, the original Dragunov.
Yeah, when he was new, nobody had the pressure game that he had, and I picked up on that right away. Except back then, running 2 wasn't a launcher, wasn't a counter hit launcher, but it was +9.
So still stupid, just not in the same way.
Yeah, and nobody knew how to deal with uh, a chunk poke like down two back then. It completely ruined his meta because you could hit someone with it like 10, 20 times, and they're just like, what? We don't duck here.
Right.
And it changed Tekken. They gave everybody running moves. They gave everybody, a tech crouch low move.
Mm-hmm. Now you gave me a
So,
good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm gabbing away because I felt the floor there. You're good. It's just going to come down to whoever's fun. And right now, Azucena is incredibly fun.
Anybody else that you've played that would even be in content? I mean, I know that you gave the caveat there that, if they change Yoshi to a certain degree, then, that would open the door to a character switch. But is there anyone else who would even come close to Azucena for like switching to?
So the only thing that's really going to affect me for Yoshi is if they dumb him down, so to speak, because the whole thing is 10,000 options and it's this giant puzzle. How do you make people play against things that they can't really expect? It's this challenge that unless you've played Yoshi, it's hard to put into words fully. But the characters that I enjoy so far the most, obviously Azucena, but it's interesting how many characters have actually changed more than it even looks when you look at them. Like, I think everybody's seen that new Paul double crouch dash. That's really interesting, and he has all these cool new options with it. But I think even Law, his whole mix-up game has changed now that Slide ends up standing, and he's got this cool nunchuck move that hits grounded, and it's like the entire dynamic.
DSS is easier and it cancels in, or you have a slide cancel from it. That throws me off so much.
What I think is funny though is like when you watch each of these trailers, you see these things like Raven, right? You see him shooting out clones, and it's immediately like that's something that grabs your eye, like this is really cool, because it is really cool when you see it. But when I tried Raven back when the thing was out, he's actually not that different. Like they took away his low launcher, the quarter circle forward too, and now it's a poke, but his style is very much the same. So the ones that are really grabbing me are these characters that are completely revamped with little changes, like Paul's while standing 1-2, where the second hit's counter hit, and now he gets a free hit. It's really neat. I don't know. Or these characters like Leo we saw in the trailer. She hits you with certain moves, and then she can just decide, I'm going to go into heat now, because she can hit confirm it. I like the little changes too.
That makes sense. So I guess that's a good segue. So any other like general thoughts on the new system changes? Because I know some of them are more impactful than others, obviously, but I think they've changed more about the game than I think most people realize. With those little changes that you're talking about. So any other thought? I mean, kind of scratched the surface a little bit there, but any others you want to talk about?
We could fill a whole episode with the little changes that they made to the overall system. It's kind of, it's more impressive because like when you kept going from like, okay, in Tekken 5 they gave everybody a crush system so they could deal with certain oppressive things, and then they found that they misbalanced the crush system, so they went to Tekken 6 and they kind of made everyone a little bit more homogenous. It was a more fair game, but it also wasn't unique, like the character individuality. And then when they went to, I'm going to skip tag because it's just its own breed, but then when they went to 7, it's like they really did focus on the individuality of the characters, and they continued that with 8. So they changed, they gave everybody like their individual strengths, and you can really see that with the heat system, because some characters, when they activate heat, they get lots of chip damage. Other characters get new moves or new abilities, and I like how they expanded on that. I think that's going to be one of the most interesting parts of the game. But like even the old school things, like you might have done a death fist at the end of a Paul combo to get them to the wall. But now in Tekken 8, there's different kinds of blowback hits. So some will get them to the wall, and then some will like slide them into the wall, so they can't really do a follow up. So it's these little changes that like the hits basically look the same, but to those that are really looking for their best possible options, they may have to use more moves now than they used to.
One thing that I noticed that I thought was, I actually think at this stage, I think it's very annoying, but I'm sure I'll get used to it, is that every move that knocks down now has a really, really long knockdown stun, even though, like you mentioned, it's not all the exact same animations, but just the act of falling down is taking so long now that every single move that knocks down seems like it grants Oki, because you just have so much time to run up before they're allowed to tech roll. Even if you don't get like a follow-up from it necessarily, you're just still in the other person's face, because they changed a lot of knockdown, so it's not instant anymore.
Yeah.
Or like you're just falling or rolling backwards for so long that they're just in your face before you can tech roll. Whereas there's some of that in Tekken 7, but I feel like there's a lot of knockback moves where instead of that, at best, maybe you'll get like a run mix up. Otherwise, it's just like, okay, here's a neutral reset, right? It doesn't feel like there's a lot of neutral resets anymore. If you knock somebody down, you're still on offense immediately afterwards. So
Yeah, it's definitely a more offensive game, and what you're talking about, I think, is probably one of the better features, because you got these moves like most people's Magic Fours, where it'll knock down on the ground. And in old games, if they had that kind of delayed knockdown that you're talking about, you would think, oh, I have to like micro dash and do this, and it becomes a launcher. In this case, it's literally there just so you can maybe get like a mini combo. So they're really strong on these mini combos. I dig that too. You never know if it is a micro dash one until you completely test it out.
right. Well, I'm trying to think if I have anything. Like you said, we can probably fill up an entire episode, which is fine with Tekken 8. All the
Well, let's
little.
toss it back to you though. Who are you looking at?
God, I don't know, man. Right now, Azucena is in the lead. So I guess first, I've put a couple videos up on the channel about this. So for longtime fans or people who watch all the videos, you'll probably already know this. But I was so I've been going through a character crisis for like fucking 20 years now. I played Law for a long time, and then when Armor King came back in Tekken 6, he was actually decent. He was not nearly as bad as people made him out to be, and I really thought he was fun. So I switched to Armor King. Tag 2 came around. I didn't really like Tag 2 as a game in general, so I didn't play it very much. When Tekken 7 came out, Armor King was not in the game. Law was, but at that point I was kind of fed up with him. Just because I just didn't, I thought he was just boring. It was just kind of more of the same. Here's the DSS stuff, which is one of those things where in Tekken 8, I like that they have changed DSS just to make him different. Like just to change up how you have to play him and kind of make him new in that sense. So I really like that. But when Tekken 7 first came out, I wasn't into the whole DSS thing anymore. So I switched characters, and I had been messing around with Bruce in Tag 2. So I was like, okay, well, let's start off with Josie. Well, Josie's initial iteration was not very good. And
No.
she did get better as time went on, and she's okay now in Tekken 7. And we're not going to do a deep dive on Josie, but there was just after a while, I was like, all right, I can't play this character anymore. And then Armor King came out. I actually, it's just so that I had a character to play where I wouldn't lose all the time. I played Paul for a little bit after I dropped Josie. And then Armor King came out. They announced him and released him as DLC. And he sucked when he first came out. He's a lot better now. Although I still don't think he's as good as a lot of people think he is, but he was certainly
I'm in
really.
that boat.
What's that?
I'm in that boat.
Yeah. So, but he's still super fun to play. So when he came out, I was like, all right, I'm all in. This character is really cool. And then after a while, I was like, all right, they have not been buffing this character enough, and he sucks. So I'm switching again. And I switched to Ganryu. So I was playing Ganryu for a long time. And you know,
I do think that as we get older, and maybe it's like you've learned to not let your character kind of beat you. You know, like Law with DSS, right? If you drop a DSS, how bad does that hurt you?
right.
So it feels like you're not letting your character beat you as much. I think you should stick around, look at these tiers a little bit.
Yeah, which is kind of where I am right now. So that kind of leads me up to the most recent switch, which was Leroy. So they announced, you know, very early on that Leroy was going to be in Tekken 8, and I was like, well, you know, he's obviously a lot weaker than he was even after that initial patch, where where you know he came out completely busted, and then they patched all that stuff down, and then they just kind of pushing him down. but I was like, well, in a brand new game, you know, he still has the core things that you need. So if they can just, you know, make a couple buffs here or there, and maybe his new moves will be really strong, you know, and he's really fun to play. So I was getting ready to play him, and I have not enjoyed the changes that they have made to him in Tekken 8 at all. So now I'm kind of in that boat with you where, you know, you have somebody, you know, you haven't seen how he is yet. So we'll see how Yoshi is when he gets released. But my backup is the same as yours right now. It's Azucena. She seems just too cool. And unless they nerf the ever living shit out of her, she's going to be strong. So, like, I expect a couple things that are like no-brainer nerfs, like that running 3-2. That thing's gonna get scaled for sure. But she
I'm
has
hoping that they're smart enough to not make it duckable on that second hit, and just maybe reduce the guard damage. That's what I'm really hoping.
right. But she has so much other stuff, right? Like, she's just littered with insane tools. So, on top of just being fun to play. So I think she's in the lead right now, based on the characters we have been able to play. I'm trying to think if there would be anybody else.
Oh yeah,
that would even be in the running.
You haven't said much on other characters.
Yeah, that's because I don't know. I'm not really like sold on anybody. Like, Law seems cool, but they've given enough nerfs to stuff that I liked that I don't know if I would make him a main character. If I needed to,
Some
like,
people think he's like secret top 3.
Yeah, and it's possible. Like, that new sidestep low is really good. He actually, you know, at first people thought that slide was weaker, but now we've learned that you can turn around and get a nunchuck, and you're getting more damage now off of the slide. And because that slide is now from DSS, and like you were mentioning before, the character is not going to beat you as much because DSS is way easier. So it's possible. Yeah, it's possible that he's going to be super strong. They just made like nerfs to like certain strings and stuff that you're like, okay, like his back turn is pretty much worthless now. Like, I don't know why you would ever go into back turn with him anymore. Because all, you know, they have made all the changes, those nerfs to the universal back turn moves, which really hurts what he did have. And
now you're gonna make me go look at him whenever we get the chance.
Yeah, please, definitely, because like the back turn sweep that doesn't launch anymore, so he doesn't have that. And like the toe kick in particular, he really needed that to be plus. Having that as, you know, the now nerfed version where it's -3 or so. Like, his wall standing game is so strong, but he really needs like at least a little bit of advantage from back turn to make that work.
Makes sense. I appreciate your perspective on that.
Yeah, and well, in any character that had a back turn, you know, if you look like a Lily or whatever, if they didn't have other tools to replace the generic ones, they're automatically way weaker, right? So the
That new
back,
Lily move.
yeah, the back turn toe kick, like still really good, obviously, still really, really strong, but it's not like that heavy offensive tool like it used to be. So if you're a character that doesn't have anything to replace that, then those back turn changes are going to be really rough. So like Lily, she's in heaven. she has what she needs.
Yeah,
So
factor in mid that ducks high.
yeah, so she's fine. She doesn't need all the generic stuff because she has her own stuff. Otherwise, I'm mostly just going to once the game comes out, kind of get a read if it depends on what they do with Azucena, but she's probably going to lead the pack if they don't make any major changes with her. Otherwise, I'm just kind of going to let the tiers dictate things. We know Ling is really strong, right? I
don't know how strong yet.
I feel like, I don't know. I thought
She
like
does big damage.
Yeah, but I thought of all of her BS was like even more BS now. So maybe that's not the thing. Is
now we have to gauge everybody's BS against each other.
Right. I really don't want to go back to a Mishima, but I will if I have to. Because I guess so.
Like a threat.
A little bit of a background, like when I first started Tekken, I was a Mishima player. Well, I guess I was a Hwarong Eddie player, just like every other moron that just hit the buttons and didn't know what they were doing. But when I actually learned what I was doing, I eventually became a Mishima player, and with the original Tekken Tag tournament, and I settled on my final team in that game was Devil Ogre. There's no Ogre in Tekken anymore, so I can't pick Ogre. But I mean, obviously, Jin is really strong in Tekken 8. Kazuya. I was just gonna say, Kazuya is Kazuya. Like your style. Yeah, and he's a potential. Like if he's really strong, because you don't need to be like a hyper crouch dash master to play Jin, right? So, because I don't have those skills anymore.
You like to do some of the fancy stuff, but you like to have core tools, and that's really where he's at.
Right. Lars seems really stupid, so he might be up there. I really like King. King looks really cool. And because of the changes,
a lot of people hate him.
Which is funny because I feel like, especially with the changes that they've made to the grab system, that he's going to be really strong. So.
Oh, they hate him because he's so good.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Is that how King players do? Like, if he's so good, well, then they can't complain about anything? Is that how King players
Probably. They'll still find a way. But, no, people are, like, when I think the CNT came out especially, King was, like, number one.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. So yeah, I mean, there are characters that could change my mind, be like, hey, play this. Even Paul, right? Like Paul, you mentioned some of the little things that they changed to make him more interesting, but he's still Paul. he's not going to be weak. So we'll kind of see how he develops. There are certain characters that I would never play because I just hate their style. So I guarantee Steve will be really good, but I hate Steve, so I'm not going to play Steve. Shaheen.
You don't seem like a Raven fan.
Yeah, I'm not a Raven fan. Although I don't think he doesn't seem like top tier. Like he fine. Like he has tools, but he doesn't seem like he's busted or anything. I'm not really a fan of Leo. I'm not really a fan of how that character plays. So even if they do turn out to be really, really good, I'm probably not gonna play that character. Shaheen, I'm borderline on. I did like him in Tekken 7, but
I do too.
He was also really boring. Like he eventually gets really boring. Dragunov, I've never really been interested in Dragunov. Fang. Fang is up there. I could be a Fang player. Because he's just so cheesy. Like, why not? We have to see how they're gonna play, but Victor looks really cool, right? If he's strong, I might play him. Reina, obviously if she's super strong, why not? Let's just go with her.
Reina's probably my second out of what we've seen so far.
Yeah, and then Devil Jin, we haven't seen these characters play yet, but Devil Jin, he could be, I'm sure he'll be Mishima strong. So we don't know how Kuma's gonna play. So yeah, I think there's definitely options, but right now, based on the characters we have actually been able to play, Azucena's at the top, I think.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's. I don't know if I like her though. Like for example, another one, Nina. Like Nina could be really strong, but I hate playing Nina. I have always hated playing Nina, so I will not be playing Nina.
And and Arslan says Nina's in the top three from the CBT, of course.
Yeah, which I can see it. Like I can see that character being super strong. So I haven't messed with her move list or like done too much research and all her crap, but yeah, I could foresee her being really strong, but not a character that I care about. So
That's another character where they had 10 million moves and they whittled them down and made everything a little bit more solid,
yeah,
which seems to be the running theme for like, we're going to simplify these characters, but still leave them with options.
right. If I had to take a guess, I would say that I'm probably, even if it's not Azu, I'm probably going to play one of the new characters, right? Because one of them or all of them will be super strong, and they'll be new, so it'll be fun to play them. If I had to go back to an old character, I would say the character most likely would be Fang, because he's just going to be dumb and annoying, and he's going to be Fang. and
And I think your approach is good not just for you, but anybody who's like on the fence, maybe they lost a character or something like that. If you are thinking about ending up with someone top tier, it's probably not bad to start by playing some character you've never seen their stuff before so you can learn it.
right. Which is a good thing, even if you don't plan on playing them long term or playing them at all. Just or at least
Yep.
seriously, just learn them and play some casuals, and it's definitely one of the best approaches to learning how a character plays. Because then not only do you pick up some of that rote knowledge, but when you see other people play that character, you'd be like, oh, that's how they use that move, and it helps you like develop a sense for what a move is supposed to do. So,
hmm
but yeah, so that's where I am with that. So I have no idea who I'm going to play. I'm just gonna kind of go with it wherever the tier list takes me, I guess. So so is that kind of the same thing that you're doing? So it's Yoshi and then Azu if Yoshi is for whatever reason drastically changed, and then just whoever after that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not locked in on Azu as a second because obviously the nerfs could really affect how I feel,
Sure.
or buffs for all I know. Um, but I think Azucena is kind of a. It seems like they're using her as a a way to demonstrate what they're going for with characters. Now they're kind of letting the personality through a little bit more, and you really get that with Azucena. She's already a strong personality character, and that play style is so much fun.
Right. Yes. I'm still kind of surprised, and we'll see how much sneaks through, but her neutral tools are so crazy. Like with a new character, you kind of expect. I guess we kind of had this with Tekken 7 too, but with a new character, you kind of expect that they're unique, like stance related items, or whatever, like specific moves that you would consider, part of their style or their personality or whatever, would be the stuff that's most broken or potentially most broken because it's just new.
hmm
But just her basic stuff is so strong. It's so strong. Like things like you're like, all right, well that's just a poke like a lot of characters have, and you're like, oh, it also does all this stuff. Why? Why does it do all
Yep.
that? So we'll see how much they actually let through. But that's the thing that intrigues me because I mean you mentioned it earlier. I like having stance stuff as an option. I do not like being locked into it. I really like
hmm
having my neutral core tools that I can always fall back on. So
And I think you can see in the design of not just that character, but all of these changes, you can see how they watch the play style of the strongest players during seven, and they let that shape the design of these characters. Like, how do we make them effective, but still you know
right,
have their personality or their individuality?
right. Makes sense to me. Um, all right. Well, that's I mean, so I think probably what I'll mention this now just because we kind of brought it up, but um, I think that we should and can talk a lot more about Tekken 8 because, both of us got a lot of exposure to the CBT. But since there's not a whole lot of current event stuff happening for next month, I think what we can do is probably just make a list of stuff that, like observations or whatever, um, that are interesting to us that we've seen with Tekken 8 and kind of let that fill up an episode for next time. But I'll throw it out there if there's anything specific that people want us to talk about, or we don't mind doing research either. So if there's something you're like, oh hey, did you guys happen to blah blah blah, or do you know blah blah blah, definitely throw that out there. I think we can kind of keep the system thoughts saved for that, and we just talked about some character stuff, but was there any other like general Tekken 8 stuff that you wanted to get out there? Anything
Nothing
that
off
just
the
kind of
bat.
caught your
I
eye?
think you're right. I think we should save the system stuff for when the game actually comes out because there were so many changes between the CNT to the CBT
Mm-hmm.
that I think we could really just do a full thing on the development up to the release game. So
Well, I,
we, yeah,
I
like Scott said, we're both film studies. So if we haven't experienced it, we can go look for it.
right, and I was gonna say, well, what we can do, I think we can just kind of talk about what we've seen so far, since the next or the game itself won't be out until the end of January. My guess is probably what we'll do is one more episode at some point, maybe late next month, late December, early January. Then we will let the game release, and then we'll kind of dive in and see what we can find, and then do like an episode on very early impressions of what we've seen. I guess the one thing that could throw a wrench into the whole plan is if they do end up announcing an open beta, because then that would change a lot of what we would be exposed to. So yeah, I think we've gone for a while. Actually, a lot longer than I was expecting. So that was cool. That we got
Sorry.
to dive into there. No, that's great. I love it. I love it. People love their podcasts, and part of, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but I'm not going to do any special like animations or anything for the background. So, if we'll probably just throw up match videos or whatever, to have some background video, but otherwise, people can just minimize it and listen to it and not have to worry about having the video feed up. But that being said, very good talk. I think, we got a
Always a
lot
pleasure.
out. Yeah, we got a lot out there for the introduction. The one final thing we did this for, I believe it was the Tekken 6 podcast, that I really liked, ending the episode with something not necessarily Tekken related, right? Just anything that maybe is on our mind, or maybe we've, been up to something that's not Tekken, because obviously there's a lot more to our lives than than Tekken.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I guess I have to, because I definitely got Tekken these days. Unfortunately, doesn't take up as much time as I would like it to. In fact, but so what I'll do,
Joke.
I can actually kick us off, because I didn't really warn you about this part, so give you a little bit of time, Dan, to think about something. But to kind of end the episode, obviously we don't have any Q&A stuff because we don't have any questions, because no one has seen the episode yet. But one thing that I've actually been fortunate enough, I mentioned the fall sales going on with video games. I kind of had this drought for a while lately of nothing outside of Tekken that really was catching my eye, or what have you. And I've gotten pretty lucky here in the last month or so, because there was a game that popped up in a Humble Bundle that turned out to be really fun. I was really looking for some RPG stuff to play, and I played that for a while, and then they came out with the remastered or remade Super Mario RPG, which I barely started that. I got like maybe 4 hours in, and then somebody mentioned, in our Discord group, about Octopath Traveler 2 being really good, and I
Hmm.
didn't even realize that that was a thing that existed because I guess it just came out this year. So I've been on that, especially this last week and a half, and
I
that
like it.
game it's super fun. It's so fun. So I've been playing it every chance that I've had. So I've been very happy with that. And then with the sales, they put on sale the oh god, the Double Dragon game that came out over the summer, which I've
Ooh.
been eyeballing. So that went on sale, so I'm going to be playing that at some point because that looks super fun. Mech Warrior 5 Mercenaries, they a bunch of the DLC that game has went on sale, so bought a bunch of that. So that's in my backlog there. What else? There was something else too. And then obviously we
Oh,
have
was it? I didn't know you had so many games going on.
yeah, we have then obviously we have Tekken 8 coming out in January. Oh god, there was another one. There has been a couple older games too that I've been eyeballing like, ooh, I kind of want to go back and play that cuz there's it's an action RPG kind of like in the Diablo style, but there's a game called Grim Dawn that is coming out with a big update here soon, or they already did. I have to double check the news, but that game's super fun. I was thinking about going back to that too. So yeah, lots. It's kind of weird. I guess it is kind of has been over the last however many years like a feast or famine thing, where there'll be like a year and a half of just like garbage. Like there's just nothing I want to
Yep.
play, and then all of a sudden 3-4 months of just back to back nonstop stuff. So that's been
Got a
fun.
stockpile so that when the next drought comes.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that because I want to say like several months back, at least in Steam, you can create like categories based on your library. And obviously you have the one category that's everything you have installed. And then I also created a category called Swing Back that has several games in there. So if I ever ever like really am getting bored and need to find something to play, I have like these mildly interesting games that are sitting in that
Nice.
category that I can kind of pull from if I need to. So I do kind of have that going on, but yeah, I have to give it up. I now understand why the Octopath people are so pissed that that game wasn't nominated for for Game of the Year for whatever that game thing is, because yeah, the game has been super fun so far. So
What is the big award now?
it's called. Well, I don't know the big award, but I would assume it's Game of the Year. But I think I think the thing is just called Game Awards. I think that's all.
Oh,
Just the Game
I
Awards.
thought
I think.
maybe because I remember back in the day it was like all about the EGM Game of the Year, or
Right.
So I don't know anymore. I'm out of the loop on that stuff.
Yeah, outside of that one awards thing, I don't think that there's anything specific. Like every single video game website or content creator has, they always do their end of the year, like their personal stuff. But I don't think that there's one big one that everybody's like, ooh,
Oh, okay.
let's go watch that. But
As you know, I still just play Disgaea, so I've been
mhm.
playing that, and then
But that's a
I just
game you
watched
can
the
play
Barbie
for a
movie.
long time, right? Like you can play
Yeah, that one will get me.
tons, yeah.
That'll get me all the way up until release. um, I watched the Barbie movie. I love that one, and
My wife loves that shit.
yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
um, Otherwise, we were sick and we lost a dog, so
Oof.
it's been that kind of month.
Oh, yeah, that's sad. My sister-in-law, so my wife's sister, just had to put her dog down last week. So it's I don't know, man. It's always around the holidays, right? It's like the worst.
Mhm.
But we'll make it. We live in their memory, right? So
Lucky to have 'em.
yeah. Well, I guess yeah. If you have any pets out there,
Shout out to your pets.
yeah, shout out to your pets. Um,
Big
but,
ups.
but yeah, so that's all I have. So nothing crazy cool otherwise that you want to end on. Oh, you know what? You mentioned movies. You know what movie I bought the other day?
What you get?
The Pest.
Oh God, I love that movie.
I know. I
I'm
was
sure it
like,
aged
wow.
poorly though.
Some of the jokes were, yeah, a little. You're like, all right, that probably wouldn't fly now, which is fine. It happens. Things change. Um,
Yeah, like I give Ace Ventura a pass. I know that Jim Carrey is actually a pretty decent human being. It's just, the world just isn't the same place anymore.
yeah, which is always going to happen, right? Like people's um, temperaments and everything are going to change. So the things that people find funny now are not going to be funny in 5 or 10 years. So I just kind of
Hmm.
accept it for what it is. But I will say that I'm still a huge John Leguizamo fan. You know,
Yeah.
he's my guy. And we were even talking about it because um, I watched what the hell is it called again? Violent Night, right? That Santa movie, and
Is he in that?
he's the main bad guy. So yeah. So I was
Ooh.
like, "Oh, sweet," because anytime he pops up in something, I'm a big fan. Like had no idea that he
Oh,
would,
yeah.
that Disney movie Encanto. The kids love
Yep,
that
he was
movie, but yeah,
Bruno.
yep, he is Bruno. You never talk about Bruno, but he is Bruno. Um,
Nobody talked about John Leguizamo, huh?
yeah. I had no idea he was, well, I mean, I don't think that they expected that movie to be as big as it was, but, um, yeah, didn't realize until later. I was like, oh yeah, that is him, isn't it? But
He'll forever be my Tybalt too.
yes, yeah, he was great. He was great at that. And then, yeah, we're only a week away from being able to watch Santa's Sleigh, right? So
Yep.
getting ready for that.
Plan is go over to Peter's.
Yeah, all the Christmas movies. So I hope everybody has some traditions and stuff like that where you get to do some cool things around the holidays. But
Shave your dog or whatever you do.
yeah, shave your dog. Right. Yeah, in the winter, shave your dog. Um, all right. Well, that's it. I think that was a decent first episode to get us kicked off. Obviously, guys, we'll get better at this. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since we've done a podcast. So, but it's fun times and it lets us talk casually about things. So we'll leave it at that, and expect us here in around a month or so with some more stuff, and we'll talk a little bit more about Tekken 8. Hopefully, we will have received more Tekken trailers from the Namco gods by then, and we can talk a little bit about those. But otherwise, Dan, anything you want to say for a final word?
Um, I, I was thinking earlier about because you were describing the deep dives that I do, and then I was like, well, I could just save it for one of our individual character ones. But I
Mhm.
thought that I might also forget because we're old. But if you want to look like why am I talking about all of these things? My best description is look at look at what I'm doing as a map. Like obviously when you hear people talk about character strats for like an individual character, they'll point out like the major cities. Like if you look at America, you got New York, Chicago, LA. I'm going to bring up all of the major cities all across the country and then refine it down to what I think there is. So that let's say somebody blacks out Chicago next time, you always have Dallas to look forward to.
Right.
I try to give you the full scope and then narrow it back down, generalize it.
Right. And then also tell everybody what the best BBQ place on L Street is, right?
I'm sorry, what?
I said tell everybody what the best BBQ place on L Street is, right? Give them all the
hell
tourist destinations.
hell yeah. And I'll lean on you for some of that.
Yeah, I'll try to keep us straight, but I love compiling knowledge. Like that's my thing. Like I'm a spreadsheet nerd, and I love just putting things together like that. That's why I do the guides to begin with. So yeah, so you're the one that likes to, you're the digger, right? You dig up the gold, and then I'm the one that organizes it in pieces and puts it in the books. So
Yeah, I don't like to get hit with the random weird setup that you've never seen before.
right.
I like to hit the random weird setup you've never seen before.
Excellent. So that's good. That's a good final place to end the podcast. So thank you everybody for sticking around and listening. And as always, I love to end all of my videos with this, but big thanks to all the patrons out there. There's some of you guys that have been supporting for a long time at this point. I think the first guide that I put up for Tekken 7 has probably been like 3 or 4 years now. And I think there's a couple patrons that have been there since I started the Patreon. So you guys are awesome, and that is appreciated far more than I could ever actually put into words. So thanks for that, guys. And otherwise, I hope, if you live in the US, I hope you guys have had a great holiday and that you find some awesome, deals, because, the world we live in, that's what we are. We're looking for sales and shopping holidays. And then I hope you guys, if for whatever reason we can't get to the next podcast before the end of the year, that whatever you celebrate around that time, that everything is great with you and yours. So have a good one, guys, and we will check you next time.
Later.